Pazzesco.
In Italy, deep in the countryside, archaeologists have made the discovery of a lifetime. A long-lost Roman amphitheatre.
Madonna.
Va tutto sotto, sì.
Their excavation reveals an opening that was buried deep in the ground for over 1,000 years.
Vado a prendere una torcia.
Now the team dares to enter the tunnel in a quest to uncover its hidden secrets.
Madonna.
The Colosseum, in the heart of Rome. Today, this monumental building is an enduring symbol of the Roman Empire. Famous for its spectacular gladiator contests of brutality and death. Its scale and ambition was legendary. Now, an international team of archaeologists is investigating how this megastructure became so crucial to the Roman Empire.
It was initially a Roman amphitheatre, and it becomes the symbol of Rome. I have to ask the question, why?
The weathered facade of today shows little trace of the marble that originally adorned this colossus. Statues of gods and goddesses once stood in the arches. This icon, completed in 80 AD, seated 50,000 spectators. It was a gift to the people from Emperor Vespasian and his son Titus. Romans gathered alongside the emperor in his imperial box under a retractable awning to witness the greatest and bloodiest entertainment of ancient Rome, the gladiator fights.
It was built to impress, and it still does.
British archaeologist Valerie Higgins has made the city of Rome her home and has a lifelong passion for its ancient civilization. She's exploring how the Colosseum, an arena of entertainment, became so central to the very idea of Rome. Valerie wants to investigate what went on behind the scenes of the amphitheatre's spectacular shows. She heads down to the area beneath the arena floor, once a warren of dark tunnels, to look for clues.
There are lots of these holes surrounded by white stone all over the basement of the Colosseum, and they're quite intriguing. They must have a purpose, and that purpose has to be something that's happening up on the arena floor.
Valerie hunts for more evidence in the surviving structures.
They've cut a groove here, you can see that clearly in the rock. So there is something that is going up and down at this point. It looks like there's been some machinery here.
Everywhere there are traces of the mechanisms that powered the dazzling shows up above.
These stones are at a strange angle. The only reason I can think of why they would be there is that this was a ramp into the arena. It gives you a sense of how the Romans created magic in the spectacle. Because up through the ramp could come animals or people appearing as if by magic in the arena.
Expertly designed pulleys and cages delivered wild animals into the arena to astonish the crowds. The spectacle began with a hunt. Hundreds of wild animals from across the Roman Empire were released and slaughtered by trained hunters. Next were the gruesome executions. Many convicted criminals were mauled to death by wild animals. And then, the stage was set for the grand finale. Gladiators, fighting head to head. The Romans went to extraordinary lengths to entertain the Colosseum's vast crowds. To explore why, Valerie's going deeper behind the scenes. At Volterra in Tuscany, 130 miles north of Rome, a team of archaeologists is unearthing an extraordinary discovery. One that might help solve the puzzle of why the Colosseum was so central to the Roman Empire. Elena Sorge is the team leader.
La cosa che mi piace di più dell'essere archeologa è l'odore della polvere, della terra scavata, ha un profumo particolare.
For over a millennium, no one knew what lay hidden here under the grass. Until now. Buried in the ground is a long-lost look-alike Colosseum.
Appena mi sono resa conto della portata della scoperta, non ho dormito per una settimana e devo dire è la cosa più bella che mi sia mai accaduta.
Finding a totally unknown, unexcavated amphitheatre here is one of the discoveries of the century.
Let's go ahead and kick this one off.
All right.
This ancient virgin site, untouched by previous excavations, has attracted an international team.
It's
good to go.
Out of the scene.
Shifting thousands of tons of soil, they're unearthing the old arena, the audience seating, and long-lost hidden treasures. Archaeologist Valeria D'Acchino grew up in the region and works alongside Elena.
This amphitheater disappeared during the centuries, so we are awakening a big stone giant.
And there's a mystery. The ancient people of this region weren't Roman. They were rivals called Etruscans. This was one of the last areas of the Italian peninsula to fall under Roman rule. Why was a Roman amphitheatre built here at all? The team knows that the best way to find out why it was built is to find out when it was built. Any new discovery could add a crucial piece to the puzzle. The team has found a vase deep in the ground. It has survived in one piece for at least 1,500 years.
Eva.
They call Eva Pianini, the lead restorer, to examine the find. They are looking for any clue that might allow them to precisely date the pottery. Eva sees something beneath the mud.
There is something strange in his face.
Valeria arrives to take a closer look. Could it be a special stamp that might help date it?
A fingerprint.
The ancient potter has left their mark.
No stamp.
No stamp, no date, but still a human touch from across the centuries. Eva sends the vase to a lab off-site for further analysis. The hunt for clues continues. On another part of the site, there's a sudden commotion.
Va tutto sotto, sì.
The team uncovers an unexpected opening.
Vado a prendere una torcia.
Elena races to the scene.
È una cosa spettacolare. Andiamo veloce, tu che devo scendere.
Madonna.
Che la tieni? Sì? Poi si mette di sopra.
Elena is the first to enter this tunnel in over 1,000 years.
Ok?
Un vano con altri 2 archi.
At Richborough in southern England, another buried Roman amphitheatre is being excavated. Tony Wilmot is the lead archaeologist on the dig.
It's exciting to excavate because it's the one building type that the Romans invented themselves without pinching it from the Greeks.
Tony is the first to excavate the amphitheatre in 150 years.
We're here to try and understand the amphitheatre, try and understand everything about it, the date, the structure, the way it's built.
Most of the huge ancient structure remains hidden under this vast mound. Over the years, debris and earth have collapsed into the arena, filling it 9 feet deep. After weeks of digging, the team succeeds in exposing the arena wall. On examination, it's clear that it's made from chalk block. This is unlike other Roman walls in the area, which were made from more durable stone. Historian Paul Patterson is responsible for the work at Richborough. He has come to examine the arena wall.
It's something of a surprise, the materials that they've used. We can see it was very clearly constructed of chalk blocks, quarried locally. Materials that were easily available, ready to hand, rather than having to go some great distance, might indicate that the construction is quite early.
It was here at Richborough that the Romans invaded Britain in 43 AD. It now seems likely that the amphitheatre may have been built not long after. It's a major discovery for the dig. But like the Romans before them, the team must contend with the English weather. It's raining hard. If the soil's wet, the team risks damaging fragments of history underfoot. There's no choice but to stop and take cover.
The rain has now seeped through, and we flooded basically in the deeper areas down in the arena, which means that we have to bail it out. We'll get there. This is the romance of archaeology in action.
In Rome, Valerie continues her investigation in a strange structure discovered alongside the Colosseum.
This is, I would say, residential quarters for the gladiators.
There's something here that catches Valerie's eye. The remains of a semicircular wall.
It looks like a curved arena, which is the same shape as the arena in the Colosseum.
The shape is a clue to the function of this large space.
It's a mini Colosseum. This must have been where they were training and preparing for these very complex games. What this arena here shows us is these were not just games that were thrown together where you get two guys to come out and fight. These were games that took a lot of choreography and a lot of preparation.
Gladiator fights began in the 4th century BC. They were performed at funerals to honor the dead. In the 1st century BC, Julius Caesar supersized the ritual with games of hundreds of fighters and wild animals to commemorate his relatives. The games later developed into a state-funded industry, with special schools to train the gladiators, and amphitheatres for audiences in their tens of thousands. The Colosseum, the biggest ever ancient amphitheatre, was built by order of Emperor Vespasian in the 1st century AD. Why did he want this colossus and its games? Valerie continues her search into the streets of Rome. North of Rome, in Volterra, Elena emerges from her first exploration of the tunnel at the newly discovered amphitheatre. On another part of the same site, American architectural technologists Paul Aubin and Mark Dietrich are capturing the ancient structure with a state-of-the-art laser scanner.
That was all filled in.
It was all filled
up to that height.
Yeah.
The laser bounces off every inch of this ancient structure to create a digital map of the site. This means the team can study it in forensic detail.
You can't describe the feeling of being really inside of a monument that has just been discovered and is just literally emerging out of the ground.
The team hopes to find clues to unlock the mysteries of this site. When and why it was built.
Perfect.
Their scans help to recreate the structure in its prime. Volterra's ruins today form a section of an oval-shaped amphitheatre. Sandstone arches once supported the seating for 10,000 spectators around a central arena. The team believes that the builders cut part of the structure into the bedrock of a hill and dug vaulted galleries connecting the arena to stairs around the outside. As the pieces of the puzzle come together, a whole amphitheatre is emerging, with each new discovery adding to the picture of a mini Colosseum.
Finally get to go into this tunnel.
Yeah, really anxious to see what it looks like in there.
Mark and Paul are keen to scan the tunnel first entered by Elena.
All right, watch your footing here.
The entrance is now cleared and ready for their investigations.
Tell this hasn't seen the light of day in a long time. Wow. Look at that.
Their high-tech, high-precision equipment measures up to 2 million data points per second.
I just can't believe this.
Spectacular.
Wow.
Look how tight the joints are in those arches.
That's incredible.
Definitely try and get in there too.
What do you think, Paul?
Maybe if we lower the scanner all the way, we can still get a nice shot in there.
Let's do it.
Right.
Let's see what the scanner saw. Oh, wow.
Wow, there's another arch over there.
I didn't know that other arch was back there.
I'm just wondering how many other passages must be back there.
That is remarkable.
The scans reveal a network of unknown hidden passageways that could help the team decipher when and why this amphitheatre was built. In Rome, Valerie is working with local pilot Marco Giordano to launch a drone mounted with a high-definition camera. She hopes a fresh perspective will help her investigation. She wants to identify the site of the Theatre of Pompey, built 100 years before the Colosseum.
I can see the buildings today are following the same shape as the Theatre of Pompey.
The theatre no longer exists, but it was originally built in the form of a semicircle. Spotting the telltale curve in the streets below, Valerie sets out to find the location.
Well, I can see from the shape of this building that this must be on the seating of the Theatre of Pompey. You can see this from the way that it's curved and also from the way that everything is sloping backwards. So underneath our feet here, there would have been steps going up that would have been the Roman seating for the stage, which was over on this side.
The ancient theatre was built by the Roman politician and general Pompey in 55 BC. It was the first permanent theatre in Rome, built not in wood, but in stone. A vehicle for Pompey's political ambition, he used it to win popular support.
The Theatre of Pompey really demonstrates to us just how connected politics and entertainment is. It's not just about going to theatre performances. This is about political power.
Valerie thinks the Colosseum, a theatre for gladiatorial games, was also built to win popular support.
This is a really interesting superimposition of the Theatre of Pompey on the modern street plan of Rome. If you put it close to a plan of the Colosseum, these are quite similar dimensions.
The theatre and amphitheatre are both huge but different shapes. One is a semicircle, the other a near full circle.
The amphitheatre is a little bit like two theatres put together.
Doubling the size of their Colosseum suggests Emperors Vespasian and Titus wanted a huge audience for their games. Valerie's investigations are closing in on the true purpose of the giant amphitheatre. In Richborough, England. Now the rainstorm has passed. Tony and Paul are checking progress at the newly exposed wall.
It's really come up.
Oh, it's really come up, yeah. And it hasn't been damaged by the weather either, happily.
They can make out traces of ancient paint on plastered walls.
We've got blues and red and yellow. The sort of curves of that red over there. I wouldn't be surprised if that was just the last vestiges of a figure.
This is a real surprise to me.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah.
but to find it plastered and painted.
Yeah, if you'd asked me whether it was likely, you know, before we started, I'd say Yeah, never in a million years.
They believe they've uncovered a fresco where the paint has been applied to wet plaster.
Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought of that.
No me, no me.
An amphitheatre with a fresco like this is a rare find.
There's none in Britain.
Oh, there's none in Britain. A pattern decorative on an arena wall, it is of international importance.
Walls in the Colosseum itself were painted too. Brilliant reds, blues and greens. The painted arena wall reveals how much care the Romans lavished on the Richborough Amphitheatre. It's new evidence of how important this amphitheatre was to the Romans who built it. But within hours, it starts raining again. They must act fast to protect the newly exposed fresco.
Well, once again, we've had to cover the walls, cover the chalk walls and the wall painting. So we're under blue tarps again.
For the second time, the weather forces the team to down tools. Valerie returns to the Colosseum to continue her investigation into why it became so important to Rome.
You're always kind of following the curve around.
The amphitheatre was built as an oval megastructure, measuring 1/3 of a mile in circumference. Spectators could enter via 80 archways.
I can see numbers written in Roman numerals. This one is XXX1132, and then going along XXX1V34. What this is indicating, I think, has to be the number that was on the ticket that you got in order to enter the arena.
As a spectator, you'd be just one of thousands. Unlike the half circle of the old Roman theatre of Pompey, this was a full wraparound arena. Audience capacity more than doubled from 20,000 to 50,000.
Once inside, you would be directed to your section of seating, but you didn't get to choose what it was. As you go further up to the top of the amphitheatre, it gets steeper. And you go along dark corridors and you come out into a section of seating which has been assigned to you.
Seats were allocated according to social status. The place with the worst view was right at the top.
It may well have been standing room only, and the people who stood there were the slaves and the women.
Those with the greatest status sat closest to the emperor in his imperial box. First were the elite senators. Sitting in the marble rows above them were a noble rank of Roman knights known as the equites. Above them were groups of soldiers, adolescent boys with tutors, and married men, with other ordinary citizens of Rome. In the highest levels were Rome's lower classes, enslaved people and poorer citizens, along with the women and children.
When you went to the games at the amphitheatre, you really were, in a very literal sense, put in your place.
The massive wraparound theatre had another hidden function. Engineering a 360-degree space put everyone in full view of everyone else. It's not just the gladiators who were put on show. It was the audience too.
It was a very socially reinforcing act to go to the amphitheatre because you really understood your place in society.
It was a social performance, one that reinforced the hierarchy of Roman society. The Colosseum wasn't built simply to entertain the people. It was built to keep them under control. In Volterra, Mark and Paul review their laser scans in 3D.
You can really start to see
The shape of
the
it.
overall shape.
I mean, look at that. This was all just a big grass field.
The 3D imaging allows them to identify the underlying engineering. Not just the tunnels, but the whole amphitheatre.
We're really getting a nice hint of the elliptical shape now.
Yeah, it's really neat. It's so much more clear now, the geometry of this amazing monument.
The digital data reveals patterns not obvious to the naked eye. The hope is that the hidden geometry will hold the key to understanding when and why this amphitheatre was built. But Mark and Paul's investigations don't stop here.
Well, this scan position is absolutely perfect. It's going to allow us to get the tops of these walls over here.
This is the ancient theatre at Volterra, not far from the newly discovered amphitheatre. It was built at the end of the 1st century BC. The scans of this building can be compared with the scans of the amphitheatre. Analysis of the theatre's seating and the amphitheatre's arena suggests they may have been built by the same architect for the Caecinas, a local clan not of Roman but Etruscan origin. In the 1st century BC, with Volterra under Roman rule, Aulus Caecina wrote a tirade against Caesar and was banished. But over the next 100 years, Caecinas became renowned senators in Rome. In Volterra, Caecinas displayed their grand ambitions with lavish Roman buildings, the theatre, and now it seems, the amphitheatre too. Finally, with the help of the 3D scans, the team is solving the mystery of when and why this ancient structure was built. The evidence suggests that it was constructed around the same time and for the same reason as the theatre, as a testimony to Roman power in the reign of Emperor Augustus.
An amphitheatre is a symbol of the Roman power. They are very important from a political point of view. These kind of buildings are very important for us to understand the relationship within Rome.
The amphitheatre was more than just a spectacular building, an arena for gladiatorial games. It was a symbol of Rome and Romanness. Not only in Italy, but in places like Richborough, on the outer reaches of the empire. In Richborough, England, Tony and his team are investigating why this amphitheatre was built 800 miles from Rome. Battling the weather, the team is working on the plastered and painted arena wall when they begin to uncover a puzzling structure alongside it. Once it's fully dug out, Tony finds a clue to its function.
What we have is a slight stain here, a nice straight line against the mortar floor. This is probably the base of a timber frame door of this entrance.
Evidence of a door onto the arena leads Tony to an exciting conclusion.
What this is a carcer. It's a place where animals or people waiting to go into the arena would be incarcerated, where we get the word from. It's a chamber off the back of the arena wall. This is really the waiting room for anything that's going to die in the arena. This would be a very, very grim place. This is where, you know, the fear would click in before that door rose and you went to meet whatever it was in front of you in the arena.
This significant find reveals how even many hundreds of miles from Rome, spectacle is still key.
You've got people coming and going from the rest of the Roman Empire, and this is what they might expect. These are people who are soldiers, they're traders, they're imperial officials, and they would want to have, you know, those aspects of Roman culture that they could get anywhere else in the empire.
This amphitheatre, built soon after the invasion of Britain in 43 AD, is the vanguard of empire. Not just for the conquerors, but for the vanquished too.
It's about spreading the idea of the Roman way. And the way they do that is that they try and convince the conquered populations that this new way of life is a better way of life. The amphitheatre and the things that went on in an amphitheatre is one way of doing that. We see this all over the Roman Empire.
230 amphitheatres, mini Colosseums, have been discovered across the empire. Built between the 1st century BC and the 4th century AD, they stretched from England to Africa. Some of them still stand at Pompeii and Verona in Italy, at Arles in France, Italica in Spain, El Gem in Tunisia, and Pula in Croatia. Their forms of entertainment were always the same, a way for the Roman rulers to spread their Roman values. Enemies of Rome faced public execution. They were crucified, burnt at the stake, or mauled by wild animals. Gladiators wore armor inspired by ancient enemies and mythical Roman characters. They fought with different weapons and armor to show off Roman values of courage and valor. Even facing certain death, a gladiator would be expected to die bravely. The amphitheatre Romanized its conquered peoples. But Rome needed Romanizing too. And this would be the task of the greatest amphitheatre of them all, the Colosseum. All paths lead back to the Colosseum, and Valerie is at the crux of her investigation.
Rome was the centre of a huge empire, and like all huge empires, it has a lot of migration to its centre. So most of the people who were sitting around this arena probably originated somewhere else. But the one thing that kind of made them Roman, that actually created a feeling of Romanness, is that they sat and watched this spectacle.
At the Colosseum, the emperor made sure he personified Rome. he had his grand entrance, the Imperial Gate, and he sat in his imperial box for all to see.
This is the best view in the arena, and it's not only the best view, it's the best place to be viewed. We should be in no doubt that it was putting on games like this that was really crucial to the emperor keeping power.
The genius of Emperor Vespasian and his son, builders of the Colosseum, was to harness the gladiatorial games to the power of the emperor. But it wouldn't last forever. In Volterra, as the team pieces together the story of the once buried amphitheatre, Valeria uncovers a mysterious structure.
This is an opening, for sure, probably a window. Here you can see the contact point between these blocks, and it means that this opening has been filled in.
This clear line between the original and new stone shows the window has been bricked up. It points to a radical shift in the amphitheatre's history.
This testifies probably the phase in which this building has been abandoned, maybe at the beginning of the 5th century AD.
The beginning of the 5th century AD is around the time the Gladiator games were banned throughout the Roman Empire. Was this blocked-up window the beginning of the end for the amphitheatre? In 313 AD, Emperor Constantine outlawed the persecution of Christians, and his reforms began to change the games. He banned crucifixion for convicted criminals, but allowed gladiator fights to persist. In 404 AD, a Christian monk tried to stop a gladiatorial contest, but was stoned to death by the crowd. It's said that the sight turned the heart of the Christian emperor Honorius, who then banned the games altogether. In a new Christian era, the Colosseum came to be seen in a different light.
This inscription commemorates the Christians who were killed under the Roman Empire. This became a place that symbolized all of the Christian martyrs who died. It symbolizes the inhumanity of what was happening in the arena when people were being executed in this horrific way.
The Roman Empire was the most powerful on earth. And this amphitheatre, the magnificent Colosseum, was its monument. Archaeologists are discovering that an amphitheatre symbolized Rome wherever it was built. From the provinces to the outer corners of empire, their excavations are revealing how amphitheatres came to stand for the might of Rome, for social order, military valor, and imperial power. Symbolism so powerful that amphitheatres represent the Roman Empire to this day.